Hey, what is going on, guys? It is an episode of MillenniYell with Billy and Mel. So, what is going on, guys? And so, don't get don't get all crazy now. It's not 12 o'clock. It's not lunchtime. This is a very special episode of MillenniYell because this is the very first of the MillenniYell After Dark. So it's our new thing, kind of just spur of the moment. I had something going on today at lunchtime, and so I kind of just said, "Hey, let's just do MillenniYell After Dark." And so the name stuck. So maybe we'll do a couple more of these here in the next couple of weeks. So, but anyways, guys, what we're going to be talking about today is empathy versus sympathy. I think it's such a great topic. I kind of touched base on this earlier this week. I made a post about it. And so I'm really interested to see what Mel's thoughts are on empathy, not only in relationships, but in business, in friendships. Everything comes down to empathy, in my opinion. So, but before we get into all that, guys, make sure if you are going to be jumping on here with us, got a bunch of people jumping on now. So make sure you comment who you are, where you're coming in from,
you're drinking,
what you're drinking, right? So Mel already cracked hers probably, but I'm going to crack mine on air. So, but whatever you're drinking tonight, come in, definitely interact with us. We definitely want to see what your thoughts on are empathy versus sympathy. So make sure you comment with us. But Mel, how are you doing? How's your week been? What is new?
Oh man. Hey, this episode is 36, by the way. Cheers, y'all. Here. I'm drinking my
Here, can we go this way? Can you
this way?
No, cheers it. We're cheersing. Virtual cheers.
It's so hard to do, but I love it. Rubber Soul, Hummelstown, baby. What are you drinking?
I am drinking 3-pound IPA by St. Boniface. St. Boniface. This is a 12-ounce can, but it's also
I've got a pounder.
Mine's like 9% alcohol content.
Okay, so mine's 6.3. Anybody that's joining us, let us know what you're having. But yeah, it's episode 36. It's my age, so I'm excited for this week. And I got a massage today. I've been having some issues with my shoulders and my back. I think just working and whatever, I've been going to get this worked out, and I have a bunch of gift certificates, so I feel good. I got some self-care in today. And I was a little stressed. I had, unfortunately, had to cut a client earlier this week. I had a monthly contract that, unfortunately, wasn't working out for me. And I think, speaking of not necessarily empathy, but some of the things we talked about relationships last week and just respecting yourself and knowing when you need to exit, I did. And I think it was a really great time for us to talk about that last week and for me to experience that. I've been going to counseling. Yes, I go to counseling. I think it's great for everybody to be going to counseling. Not ashamed. But one of the things we talked about was different exits and things. So it was very relatable. And something that came up about mirror neurons. Super weird, but absolutely has everything to do with empathy. So I'm so excited that Billy picked this topic. And he had no idea that just yesterday I was learning about this, and I'm super interested in it. So I want to get your take on that too. But yeah, you had something exciting happen.
Yes, I last month I was promoted in my business, and so I'm super excited about that. One step away from the ultimate goal of opening my own office. So that's always been a big vision of mine. I'm really big on legacy. I'm really big on that type of thing. And that's kind of like you kind of made it, right? And I've always wanted to have a door with my name on it because I've never had that before. And so I think that would be really cool. It's always been kind of that's been like the pinnacle for me. So I'm really excited about that. So, but
cool.
yeah, I appreciate it. So another cheers. That went the wrong I went the wrong way. But yeah, we got our first comment right here. Hello everyone. Brooke, love therapy. I'm so proud. There you go.
Awesome, Brooke. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My mom always says everyone can benefit from counseling, and including her after I convinced her to start going.
I think, not to get too down the rabbit hole of therapy, and we talked about it last week, but it's so important. You're your own worst enemy. You're going to be the one that talks yourself out of things before your friends or your family. They'll say things, but ultimately, once the decision's made in your head subconsciously, you're going to quit. Doesn't matter what anybody else says at that point. So yes, even, if there's any guys that are watching, make sure you're doing some therapy for yourself. Maybe it's not a massage. Maybe it's not getting your nails done. Maybe it's going in, I don't know, shooting or drinking beer or gambling or what? Yeah, throwing axes. Actually, Sunday I'm going to be throwing axes. So the guy that's my mentor, he wants to celebrate. He's taking me and Megan and his wife out to Mexican, and we're going to have some tacos and stuff like that. Then we're going to drink a couple beers, and then we're going to throw some axes.
Very cool. There you go.
So I have to take a video because I saw Mel a few weeks back. I mean, first it looked like I don't know how many throws. I don't know how many practice throws you had, but on that specific throw, you hit the nail on the head. That was pretty impressive.
I probably had about 10, and I had
10 beers or 10 throws.
Yeah, no, definitely throws. And I was just about to say it was prefaced with a lot of drinks. However, I happened to get some advice on somebody on how to throw it, and somebody else was taking a video at the same exact time. So it was perfect timing. But that's gonna be fun. I can't wait to see videos of you.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna take them. I'm sure the wife will take them. It's blackmail for later. We're gonna use it against each other, like good couples do. They use stuff to blackmail each other later.
Absolutely, it's good to make fun of ourselves, right?
So, but I think it like you brought up, and I know you've probably learned this because guys, if you don't know, Mel, in a couple of weeks or a couple months, you're gonna be headed to Miami, and you're gonna be
Thursday.
Thursday. Wow. So yeah, it's right around the corner. You're going to be talking and rubbing elbows with Grant Cardone. So, and I know he's really big on what you talk about, the neurons and everything and how the human brain works. And so the reason I brought it up is because I'm reading this book called Never Split the Difference. And it's by Chris Voss. He's an FBI negotiator. He was an FBI negotiator, like high stakes FBI negotiator, like people's lives are on the line. And he teaches tactics that he used to use as an FBI negotiator, how to negotiate deals in business. And so I've been using some of these things, and they work perfectly. But he talks about
me during the podcast.
No, I'm going to today though, and you'll see here in a second. But I'll let you know when I use a tactic. But anyways, he talks about strategic empathy as a weapon that you can use. And the reason empathy, and for people that are watching this might not know the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is definitely you see yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? You might not agree with their stance, or you might not necessarily like what they have to say, but you can understand where that person's coming from. It's very useful in relationships. It's very useful in negotiations and in business. And then sympathy is more so like you just feel sorry for somebody, right? And so, but I love using empathy because it feels a lot better to use empathy than be I can't even say the word.
Sympathetic.
Yeah, sympathetic. There you go. And so I just feel like for every relationship that you're in, you can use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think you made a great thing, about the difference between them, and I think that with empathy, I think it has a lot to do with emotion and connection and caring, and your heart. And I'm really interested in this because I have family members, and we'll get into this, that have no empathy, and we've all interacted with people that don't have empathy. And I it's a struggle when people do and people don't. But I think that there's so much to be said about relating that, with empathy, with work, when your leadership roles that came up in the leadership conference, marriages, with your friends, with your siblings, with your parents, and obviously dating, and there's just so much behind it. And I'm obviously really interested, but I absolutely think with empathy, it's putting yourself in someone's shoes, but I think it's like really feeling what they're feeling, and that mirror neurons thing that was just fascinating to me. I want to get into that. But it's not just saying, it's saying I'm here for you. It's saying, it's just a deeper connection, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think it's so important, like, because I think about it just in the business sense, is that, you can get pretty far in your career and have a lot of knowledge, a lot of head knowledge, right, about what you're talking about. And you can almost, you've done it so many times that you can just detach from what you're actually doing, right, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
When the person that you're sitting in front of is in a very emotional state. I mean, most people do not think, logically, like when they're, especially in relationships, in the business sense, people are thinking always emotionally. And so when you try to, speak to them in a logical sense, they might not always see what you're saying. And so, people respond more to emotional cues than they will to just logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I put a quote in there too about something that Brené Brown, I don't know if anybody, I'm a fan of hers, but it was something that I posted. I think it was in the quote for the intro, that just talked about, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection. So really, a lot of times it isn't what's being said, it's how it's being said, it's the feelings, it's the emotion and all that. And I think absolutely we've all gone through so many things in our lives, and probably recently with so much going on during COVID and the pandemic, and everyone having some type of shit that they're going through, right? And whether people have empathy for you or you have it for other people, and it's probably been a difficult situation for a lot of people, with all this stuff going on, and being able to empathize with kids at school. And there's so many things we talk about every single week that you really that it has to be there, versus just saying like, oh wow, that looks hard. Yeah, nope. I'm good. Not not interested, versus stepping in. It was kind of an analogy, is like someone's in a hole and they're sinking and they're in this dark place, and it's jumping in the hole with them, and saying you're going to be okay, versus popping your head down and going, whoop, I'm not coming down there.
Yeah, that looks dark.
Good luck. It was real dark. I'm gonna eat my sandwich up here. It was what the video was. And a lot of people,
we watched the same video actually.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's Brené Brown, yeah. But I mean, I think that, it's really interesting. There's also, to the level of people that have empathy or don't, is it learnable? Is it teachable? Is it trainable? Is it more of a natural born thing?
That's a good question. I mean, I think some people, I think you're born with some type of empathetic level or like receptor. I think everybody is, but I think the people that are, probably more in tune with the way they think, once they kind of, you're never going to fully understand yourself to the max level. But if you take the time to do the things that we do, like the self-development, stuff like that, and you open up your mind and you're not just thinking about yourself, right? That's what happens, is that when you're, this is just a personal opinion, when your mind's undeveloped in that way, you can only think about yourself. That's the way your brain is wired. We're predisposed to be like, oh, there's a saber-toothed tiger over there, right? Like, I got to protect myself. But those threats don't exist anymore. They're, we're the highest member on the food chain, right? There's nothing that's more powerful than a human being. And so, now we can take that thought a little bit further and say, okay, I understand who I am, kind of, right, to the best of my ability. But then you start to put yourself into other people's situations. And I think that's a big reason why you see a lot of people on social media fight, have differences of opinion, because they're just blind to what they only see. And they're not taking 30 seconds to see how somebody feels. Like, okay, just because you don't perceive it to be this way, and perception's a lot of what I want to talk about tonight. Perception for, you might perceive, I might say something, you talked about it earlier. Sometimes it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it, right? Or how you look when you say it, or how you hold yourself when you say it. That I'll say X, Y, Z, and you might take it offense to that, right? But in my mind, I'm like, that was a joke, right? Like, what are we doing here? And so I try to step back, and it's hard. It's not easy, but I try to step back and say, okay, how did that person receive that message? Or how is that person feeling in this moment? Because then you can help them through that moment better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, it goes back to that what you were saying, the logical, because there was things that I was reading that with sympathy is more of a logical, cognitive. Oh yeah, hey, I saw that on the come in. It says, "This is Matt." Is this your friend Matt?
Yeah, I went to college with Matt back in Alabama, and so he basically says, just got to check in what you're saying. What he watches the show. Mel seems like a quality person worth knowing. Love you guys. Take care. Hey man, I appreciate it, Matt. It's been a long time since we chatted, so let's get back. Let's chat again here soon.
Reconnecting through MillenniYell.
There it is. And here's Mama. Hey, Mom.
I love it. Let us know if you're listening and watching. But yeah, I think it has to do with absolutely that logical. Like there's different types of empathy too. There's like 3 different types that that we can talk about. But that it's more of that cognitive. It's just more of a different process than the emotion behind it, and really feeling what someone's going through than just understanding. And it's kind of like you're outside, you're not trying to get that deeper connection and be that close relationship. And maybe there's something to be said about people who know themselves and people who don't, people who are happy with themselves. Maybe it has to do with their relationships and self-esteem. And he says, and I'm drinking my daughter's apple juice. Okay, Matt, thanks for drinking along with us. But I definitely think, there's Sam. What's up, Sam? Thanks for watching, my new buddy. But yeah, I absolutely think that there has to be something that definitely goes along with your inner self with empathy, because there's so much, and personality traits and the color codes. I mean, come on. And, knowing your love language and all the things that we've talked about, their empathy goes along with a lot of these traits that are, have similarities with, and mindset that people have.
Yeah. So I think a good question to kind of ask is, how do you use empathy in your everyday life? What are some things that you do? And I can share some things that I try to do, especially in business. I think it's important. And even in, like, I know you're in a lot of groups and stuff like that. And there's a lot of personalities in those groups. We've come to find out, to say the least. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think too with my clients, I have a lot of different clients, and whether they're design or events, and absolutely, I treat each of them like they're a priority, and absolutely everyone has different, styles, but I think that you have to be adaptable. Like having empathy is also being somewhat adaptable to what each individual person is going through. I mean, you're working with hundreds of people sometimes at not necessarily at one time, but I think that especially in the leadership roles and the training that I'm doing, I mean, I think you really have to care to to want to relate to that person in when you're working with them, because it builds that relationship and that trust and, and communication and honesty, all those things that we talked about last week with relationships. I deal with that on a day-to-day basis. I think that, I'm more aware when there's no empathy. I can spot that, and that's where I have difficulty. So maybe, when there's people that I deal with in my situation, an example would be that, people maybe don't respect my time or my value. They're only going off of their own perspective and their own, what they're doing in their life and their time. And they don't care, in a sense, sometimes what I'm doing or how much time I'm spending, or, and that's where sometimes you have to have that open communication and say, hey, this is, and that was that conversation that we had when you were listening the other day. I don't think that they had much, empathy for where I was coming from. And I then had to explain it. I feel like.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me that when you can notice somebody that doesn't have empathy for you, and it definitely gets underneath your skin, right?
Yes. I think
By the way, I just used a tactic on you.
Oh, tactic. Shoot. Yes. Answering yes. Is that wrong? Am I right?
You're right.
Okay. But I think it's also because I tried to show a lot of empathy. And I think that, I have expectations of other people. I want to get what I give. And I think that when we put ourselves out there and we do all that, most of the time it's reciprocated. And I think that you try to align yourself in business and in personal friendships and in who you hang out with in relationships. You try to align yourself with people who have those qualities that you also want to give. So I think that it's not like I expect it from everybody, but most people do show it. And then when they don't, it's absolutely, I don't like it.
Yeah, no, that's so important, is to recognize when somebody's, and I think that goes back to being able to recognize emotion. And,
Right.
It's like you talk to some people, right? And like, you're obviously like, I'm the type of person, and I know you're this type of person too. We tend to wear emotions like we're not going to hide how we're feeling, right? Emotionally wise, like you're going to know when we're upset, right? You're going to know when we're happy. You're going to know when we're, pissed off or something like that. And when you are talking to somebody, right? And especially like if, back in the old days when we actually used to be able to meet people face to face, we didn't have to worry about a pandemic. You could get a lot of stuff from just having that person sit in front of you. And when you get somebody that just like is like a bull in a china shop and just goes right through you, it sucks, because it makes you feel like you're not even there. And that's the opposite of what empathy is. You should do whatever it takes to make that person heard. Like I said at the beginning, it's not something, you don't have to agree with that person, right? You don't have to, but you just got to understand where they're coming from, because in a business sense, it's going to give you the ammunition to find a solution for that person. Because the book I'm reading, he talks about it all the time. He said, the first objection that you get is never the real objection. Mm-hmm. It's just a surface level deflection. They don't want to answer you. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to whatever, right? And they're just like, well, I don't have time for that. Right. Well, then, like you'd be like, well, it seems like you're super busy. Why don't you have time for that? And try to get to the root of things, but like I said, if you're not willing to explore that, you're probably going to miss out on some opportunities.
Right. Right. And I mean, I think, I think I'm just looking over some notes and I'm just excited about some other things. Empathy deficit disorder. don't want to change the subject, but I'm just reading it, and I was like, oh my God. Maybe it's hard here. I wasn't trying to space out, but I think that it's hard because when there's people who don't have empathy and they don't realize that they don't have empathy, like no one's ever told them, and they have difficulty. There's a lot of character traits for people that don't have it too. I think that most people can understand when people do. I think that when people don't, but that here we are talking about it, and I think we both have a lot of empathy, and maybe people that are watching and listening have empathy, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see who's going to admit that they don't? That's what I'm saying. Like, are there people like that I'm just curious. Are there people that are watching this or that may eventually watch this, like say, I have trouble with empathy, or I'd like to do a better job?
I think it comes down to a lot of people don't understand the difference. They think,
sorry, Sam. No. I asked him to share. I'm sorry. I asked him to share about his profession because it makes me think of different people's professions, how you either have to have empathy or have to have more or really try harder. And I said, can you share your experience? And he said no. And then he said he would be lying. But that's why he writes empathy deficient disorder. That was definitely directed towards me. No, actually, Sam, it wasn't. But I appreciate you commenting. It's going to be directed at, unfortunately, a family member of mine. But we'll talk about it because it's a big deal to me. But no, it's not always about you, Sam.
Sam, listen, if you think that you can always turn around. You can always turn around. You can become very, very empathetic. But yeah. I think people that will say that they're not empathetic, I think most people, and I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think most people grow up empathetic, like to some form or fashion, but I think life gets in the way and stuff like that. But going back to the definition, like I think most people think empathy is feeling sorry for somebody. Like, oh yeah, that must suck. Like, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that situation. Instead of saying like, hey, I see you're dealing with that really tough situation. Like that must really suck. How are you dealing with that? What can I do to help you? Like how are some things, or, how can I, help you and get past this? Or maybe it's not even about offering a solution. Maybe it's just about just the act of listening to somebody.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it kind of now gets me thinking too, because I know what Sam does a little bit, but I feel like, what if you can't give? We know that people who aren't happy with themselves can't be happy for others. People who, aren't necessarily caring for themselves can care for others. Well, what if there's this thing about the whole empathy and people that don't, like, it's not that they don't have it. Maybe they just can't give it because of the constraint of what they're trying to give to themselves. Like you made a great example about, I'm really sorry. Like, I feel bad for you or whatever. Like, there's people out there that are like, I feel bad for myself. What about me? And that is absolutely not having empathy. But what if it's just also like, I have so much shit going on and I need help. I can't fathom helping other people. Do you know what I mean? I know it sounds weird, but I think that what if there's people that are, and again, I think it goes back to, maybe it is like a low confidence or self-esteem, or, have had trauma and have never grieved these things. And they're angry at other people. Not angry, but they're kind of like angry and negative because they have their own stuff that they're going through. So then how can they really, I know I'm not defending people without empathy, but I'm almost wondering, and I'm kind of using my, and I will talk about the whole thing with my sister, but I'm kind of using her as an example because I feel like it's almost like there's no space to cater to somebody else, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Not like you just said, but I'm a firm believer that we all go through seasons in our life, right? And so we're not going to always be ready and able to give empathy to somebody else. We might be the recipients of empathy, and so for like in a relationship, like in a marriage and stuff like that, I talked about this last week. Not every day you're going to be 90, 50-50. There's going to be days where, Megan's going to be the one, pulling me up, right? And the next day I might be pulling her up. And, the day after that,
but it's not going to work. It's not going to work if one person doesn't have empathy, don't you think? I mean, in a sense, like then it's only going to be one-sided. And maybe that is also a relationship flaw or a fail, things that have failed in a sense, is that one person can pick the other person up and has empathy and the other person doesn't,
Well, then that's not a relationship you want to be in long-term then.
Oh,
I'm just saying. I mean, if there's a difference between picking somebody up because they're going to pick you up eventually, right? That's the relationship you want to be in. If you're the one that's always constantly showing empathy and they're not reciprocating in any way, because there's going to be days that you're going to need that person and you're going to need whatever it is. It doesn't have to be friend. It doesn't have to be a relationship. It can just be friendship. And you need to have that person reciprocate at some point or another, because listen, you're not, you can be the most empathetic person in the world. Doesn't mean that you're always going to, have a full battery to give to somebody else. So,
yeah.
But Sam brings up a good point here. Empathy is seen as a weakness, and it totally is. It totally is. People think, especially in males, right? Yeah. Let's call it like we've always had. Males are less emotional, and I'm not saying like emotional crying, but I'm just saying less attached to their emotions than probably women are, or more in tune. Women are more in tune with their emotions than men are. And so when a man, or a guy is especially empathetic to another guy, it could be like a moment of weakness that could be perceived. Like, oh, well, I'm letting my guard down. I need to be Mr. I need to have all the answers, and I need to be Mr. Right. And
it shows that you have feelings and that you care. I mean, like you said, it says it takes a real person to be empathetic, no matter how badass they are. I mean, absolutely. It's showing vulnerability. Absolutely. Because you're trying to put yourself in that person's shoes. I mean, you're not trying, you are. And what you're doing is you're taking on those feelings so that you feel what they're feeling. And then you're making yourself feel that way. So, I mean, absolutely. I think, I think that it all kind of goes hand in hand. I think a little bit. I want to share my story, if you're okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So my sister, we had some issues with our relationship. Obviously, right now she's not doing so well with her health and the brain tumor and a lot that's going on. So we're hoping things pull through here with some new things going on. However, my sister and I had struggled with our relationship in our 20s and teens and 20s. And what she found when she started going to counseling, and this was actually after she was diagnosed with MS, which they thought before the CNS lymphoma, but the counselor said, she came back and the counselor said to her, and she came to my mom and I, and she said, counselor says I have no empathy. And we said, oh, and she said, do you think that? And we were like, yes, we agree. And there's been many times in the past where things have come up that she didn't know that was happening, or she was a certain way. She was very negative at times, and she had some personality traits and things. And she would say, I'm not negative. And we're like, well, you are, and it's a lot. It's 80-90% of the time. And she started crying, and she didn't know. She said, I had no idea. So sometimes people just don't know. And we've talked about this too. But I think that absolutely there has to be something as far as a mental health issue, and I don't want to call it an issue, but like a disorder or something that that absolutely there is a deficit disorder for empathy. And case in point, the counselor literally said, "You have no empathy." So I think that explained a lot in our relationship. I think that, did we say, "Do you want it? Do you want to learn?" And she said, "I don't care." And again, having no empathy shows I don't, hey, I don't care. And it's nothing, again, I'm not knocking her. I'm just saying facts, and the situation. But she was just, she didn't care. So there's people out there that, whether they know it or not, whether they find out or not, and they're told by an actual doctor, they're not going to do anything about it.
Wow. Yeah. That's a tough situation, but like you said, like you said, it's just some people just choose not to. I think everybody has the pathway to do it. I think it becomes a choice at some point, whether or not you want to be empathetic to somebody else's situation. Because if you live long enough and you experience enough things, you're going to experience what most people have. We're all going to experience some type of pain in our lives. It's inevitable. And so, but being on the side of just like acknowledging it, and saying, "No, I'm not, I just don't want to do that." That I agree. That's a different type of level.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's other things going on. And, coincidentally, there was a neurological disorder, with MS, and then obviously she had a brain tumor. So, this could just be a complete brain neuron, thing going on because of her, health-wise, what she's got going on. But there are a lot of characteristics of being happy for other people, and feeling the good what other people are having, and then feeling the bad. So, there's people out there that can't do either of it. So it's not just bad things, right? Empathy is not always necessarily, I guess we're saying putting yourself in someone's shoes, but like empathy always and sympathy always seems like it's such a bad thing, but it actually could be a really good thing. Really, if you're right.
Well, I don't want to sit here and bash sympathy, because it's not, sympathy is not a bad thing.
Having sympathy or having empathy, we're talking about things that are like, oh, somebody died, or you lost something, or you lost your job, or you're sick. It's like, it's all these bad things. But at the same time, having empathy and sympathy for people that are going through great things, right?
Yeah, but I think
it being a bad.
I was going to say it's probably 90-10. I can't remember a time that I was like, you just always associate empathy and sympathy with something that's negative, a negative connotation. Like, I can't remember a time like I was empathetic with somebody, or even how to even give an example of how to be empathetic to somebody that has something good going on.
But maybe that's like a way to have more empathy, is also to be happy for people,
grateful.
And being grateful and being happy for them. If you can be happy for somebody else in what they're doing.
Oh, I love this. Yeah, keep going. I love this. What you're about to say.
Is this a tactic? Is this
no?
Are you testing me again?
You failed already, but no, keep going.
You can be shut up. If you can be happy for other people when they're happy, when they get a promotion, I'm happy. When you get this is what I'm saying. Maybe there's a correlation, because unfortunately, my sister wasn't happy for other people either, and it wasn't always. It's not everybody, but it was a lot of it was. And again, maybe it goes back to self-confidence and insecurities and things. But if you can be happy for somebody else for their positive things, and you can take on that feeling of joy for them, then maybe you can have the same feelings when they're feeling bad.
I like it. No, I like it. I definitely like it, because, I'm a religious person, so I do pray and stuff like that. And I heard, I follow Steve Harvey, so every morning I started something new. Well, not new, but I get up in the morning and I do my devotional. I do my journal thing that we talked about. Can't talk about it too loud because, but the journal that I do, but and then I watch like a 5 minute like motivational movie or video, and it's usually Steve Harvey, and he talked about this today actually, and he said that how can you, if you can't be happy for what you have now and be happy for others, you're not going to get anything else in life because you're not grateful for the things that you have, and you can't express gratitude.
Did we
So
talk about this last time?
I don't know. We might have, but
You and I talked about this, but
it's always relevant. But I think you bring up a good point. Like, if you can't be grateful for somebody else's success, first of all, other people's success should be the biggest boost. It's the biggest boost for me because I see people, and listen, I don't want to judge anybody, but you see people you see people on social media or whatever, or people that and you're like, listen, if that bro can be successful at what he's doing, like, what am I doing, right? Like, I'm just sitting over here doing nothing, right? So, yeah, I think being happy for others is a form of empathy because you're putting yourself in their situation and you're understanding how they're feeling. You're like, man, that's a really good feeling, right?
right. Yeah, and I think even if you don't know it, but that if you can work on that and being happy for other people, then I think it would benefit the negative things too. Absolutely. I think I think we had talked about that, being content with where you are, but I think a lot of this goes into where your inner self, and a little bit of where you're at in your place. But yeah, I wanted to. Oh, thanks, Matt. That's Matt Smith. Faulkner, baby. I hope you guys are coming to Derby Day this year. I just want to give him a little shout out.
What is Derby Day?
Derby Day is an event for Kentucky Derby, and they hosted, Matt and Joyce hosted it at their house several years ago when it was through the Jump Street organization, and which dissolved, and now Greystone took over, Greystone Brew House in Dillsburg, and we're doing it there, and it's going to Bethesda Mission this year, all the proceeds. So we pick a different charity each year, and they're obviously the Faulkner organization gives back to the community, but their family does too. So thank you guys for that shout out.
So I want to know, right, because I've been watching you on the social media, right, and you've been talking a lot about the Grant Cardone thing. So tell us what you've learned so far, and how maybe have you run into stuff that because he's, believe it or not, like, for people that like, if you actually sit down and you watch a lot of his stuff, he comes off like, if you're just watching like ads of his stuff, it's going to come off super aggressive, right? Yeah. It's going to come off super, super aggressive. But when you watch a lot of his stuff, he uses a lot of empathy in what he talks about and what he does. So what are some things that you've learned from him in the last, because you've been watching some videos, right, and getting ready for your trip?
I do. I watch on Monday and Tuesday nights sometimes, and he's not always on there, but obviously I think the people that work for him and that do the videos, obviously, follow through with his mission and everything. And, it's funny because I haven't specifically heard anything about empathy, exactly about empathy, but I absolutely can see what you're saying in a lot of the things that he talks about, in just caring about other people. And the way that he does try to put himself in people's shoes, that whether they're his client or somebody he's trying to help or somebody, I mean, he gives advice on these free advice, obviously, when we're doing these calls to people that actually get to ask questions. And he does. I really feel like he takes his experience and he puts himself in that person's shoes, and really says, what would I do? Here's what I would do. And I feel you. And and we're going to take care of you. And one great example was somebody came on. She actually said she had a brain tumor. And I remember this because my sister has a brain tumor. And she said that she almost lost her business or had to start over again. She has trouble remembering things. She has trouble putting, doing certain things just just because neurologically and cognitively, I mean. And he absolutely said, I want you to meet my wife and I when you come. She was going to the conference next week. He said, you're going to meet my wife and I. We're going to help you we're going to get your business back on your feet. And yeah, I mean, I think he realized that anything could happen to anybody at any point, and health, we have no control over our health. So there was a great example, that I feel like he really said, what would I do and what would I want someone to do for me, and stepped up. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So you're going there on Thursday, correct? So you'll be doing an episode, or maybe we'll see from Miami, right?
Yeah, no, we're going to be doing it. Absolutely, we're going to be doing it.
It's going to be like the first time, like, because we've done a couple shows. If you guys have watched a bunch of, and like I said, this is episode 36, so we're well into this thing now. In the first couple episodes, I was on vacation doing some stuff, so it'd be interesting to see you on vacation. But I want to ask you a question, since we're going to talk to you. We're talking to you before, and I don't know why this turned into me interviewing you, but I'm going to. We're going to take. But it's interesting because you're going on this on this journey, and you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and you're going to learn a lot about what you want. So let me ask you this. What are you looking, because we're talking to Mel before the conference, right? So we'll talk to you during the conference and after the conference and get your thoughts on that. So what are you looking to take away from this?
I'm looking for my notepad and I don't know where I said it, but I'll tell you what's interesting. They absolutely said on Tuesday night, have intention. It was all about intentions. And it was absolutely their examples of what they were intentional in 2-3 years ago. And sometimes these people that go sometimes have multi-million-dollar companies, and they're looking to be a billion-dollar company. So I'm just there like poo-poo Melissa Miller, made to keep. I'm going there to learn. I'm going to take I'm 10xing my $100,000 job to $1 million. Absolutely is what we're 10xing here. But they absolutely said to write down what you want to take from this, and whatever it is. And that was one of my things, 10x of 100,000 to $1 million in 3 years, have a time, a time thing. And I want to meet people who have retail online store businesses because of the, my stationery business, and then the apparel business that I have that I'm relaunching. I want to meet people who have retail online businesses that are doing close to $1 million businesses. I don't know that it has to be that, but just successful businesses. And then I absolutely wrote down that I want to meet some women and men, mostly men, successful, good, decent people outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania. I want to open my world to what's out there, for friendships and relationships and that. But yeah, I think it was a great question.
Who knows?
I'm fired up.
This podcast might blow up into a million members. Right?
I'm sorry. I want to grow the podcast as well. Obviously, but it was about intent. It was obviously about, intentional things that, going down, having your business cards, having a personal website, branding. We talked about personal branding. Shout out to Shannon. Absolutely. They said to have a website that says about who you are. It's not just your business card that has your business on it. It's a website that talks about you and your businesses, having a personal branding website, standing out. I'm bringing Hershey bars, and I'm bringing wrapped, things that says, it was so sweet to meet you. And they absolutely said, put your picture on it. I'm no dummy. So I'm putting my picture, and I'm going to say, from the sweetest place on earth. And I'm going to be giving out Hershey bars. And my goal is by the end of that conference, someone's going to say, who's the girl giving out Hershey bars from Hershey, Pennsylvania, with her business card on it?
I'm going to see you on a YouTube video. I already know. It's already going to happen. It's going to be one of those Grant Cardone. It's going to be a Grant Cardone one. He's going to bring you up on stage, like tell me about your business.
Well, I just found out that my friend Kelly and Rob Ruth at own Bob Ruth Ford, they have a house in Delray now, and they're going. They're big Grant Cardone fans, so I'm gonna meet up with them. But yeah, I'm traveling alone. Not the first time, but probably the second. So, but
no, I think it's going to be an amazing trip for you, just because you're going to learn so much about who you are and what your business is going to look like, and you're going to meet you're going to rub some elbows with some good people, and you never know. I'm a firm believer, like, there's a reason why. I think I read the book before you. I think I might have mentioned it to you, and you got it or something like that. Yeah. I love that book. Great book, guys. First of all, if you're not reading, you're not growing, you're not learning, you're going to be in the same place that you are. So Melissa's taking a big step in that, and taking it to the next level, not just reading a book. I'm actually, the book that I'm reading right now, the Never Split the Difference. He actually has a master class, so I'm going to buy that. It's only like $180, so it's worth it. But learn that skill set, and I'll become a negotiator. I'll be using all the tactics on everybody. And so, like some of the stuff that he talks about using empathy is like, you talked about mirroring somebody, and because there's something in your brain, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but if you smile, people are usually going to smile back at you. That's part of, mirroring. And if somebody's upbeat, you want to match their style, because that, once you kind of match somebody's style, whether they're down, they're up, you connect with them. They feel like you're connected, and that you're going to be able to dive deeper. You're going to get past those walls a little bit quicker than somebody. If I'm super upbeat and you're super down, right, and I just try to beat you over the head with kindness, you're going to be like, I'm not letting this dude in. Like, what does he want? Like, that's red flags for me. But like, if I get down to your level, it's funny because I think about that a lot, because like I don't know if you know this, this might be a MillenniYell exclusive, but one of the first jobs I had was a mascot. I was a mascot for the Cape May Lewis Ferry in Delaware. And I was actually trained. I went to mascot school, and it was trained by the original Philly Fanatic. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. Yes, original Philly Fanatic. The guy that made the costume was the original Philly Fanatic, had his own business, had a really cool business.
That's really cool.
He designs mascots and then trains them on how to be a mascot. And I remember one of the things, like, because what's the one thing kids like? There's some kids that love mascots, right? And then there's some kids that are absolutely terrified, right? And so those kids that were super terrified, he would say, get on their level, like, get down to where they're at. Like, don't try to tower over them. Like, get as low to the ground as you can and let them come to you. And so that's empathy, right? You got to get to their level and humanize yourself to them.
Yeah. I just want to, I'm going to forget because I didn't write this down in my notes, but it's exactly something that came up about the mirror neurons. And it's about basically in your brain, you have to kind of look it up because it's a long story, but there's different parts of your brain that absolutely, when you feel something, you store it, that it is the same feeling that that person has. And it goes off of their you said this at the beginning, how they look, their facial expressions, their demeanor, their stature, like things that happen. That is actually our brain stores those things and mirrors it from the other person. So that is absolutely how, and it comes with empathy along that you can mirror what that person is thinking and feeling and all those things, because there's a part of our brain that does that. And again, maybe there's parts of the brain that you can't. And again, going back to my sister, I know it's weird, she had parts of her brains that weren't working because of cancer, and maybe it was affected by that. But anyway, he brought up a point about certain things about as a child, and we were talking about attachment styles, and that's a whole nother great topic that we could do on a podcast. But it was about a child who might have fell down and was hurt, and instead of, and especially with boys, and being, you're strong, get back up, don't be a wussy, all these things. But when, instead in saying like, oh, you're this, but the parent maybe says, oh, I see that you're hurt. I see you're hurt. It's okay. You're going to be okay. Or something where there's something where they feel that mirror image or that neuron or that empathy, and they say, oh, they're feeling my pain. Oh, it's okay. And like, I think that's how it develops I think that it is a developmental thing too. But there's a whole book. I'm fascinated by it. I would love to learn about mirror neurons, because I'm interested in empathy, obviously. But it's a thing. And I think that it absolutely has to do with empathy.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up, because that's what in this book Chris Voss talks a lot about. You should definitely watch he's got a couple YouTube videos up, talks a lot about it. It is just ridiculous. But he even talks about like how you slow your speech down and stuff like that to like, connect with him in a certain way. But you brought up something like, when a kid falls down, instead of saying, oh my God, you're so hurt, are you okay? Like, kid starts crying, he feels, all apprehensive. And one of the things in this book that he teaches us to do is to, instead of doing that, saying like, man, it looks like that hurt, or it seems like that hurt. You fell down pretty hard. Like, using those types of words, not saying like, oh my God, you're hurt. Are you okay? Type of deal. Using those types of things. And he also brought the point up, like you brought it up, that we'll mirror each other. We're trying to mirror each other. And he did this experiment on a plane where little kids, he would, like, if you saw a little kid, he would smile. And what would the little kid do? They would automatically smile, because that's what our brains are taught to do, is to mirror those types of things. And so, but it was just interesting to hear what you had to say about that, because I think it's such a big thing that is a gateway to leading you into somebody's thoughts, is understanding, mirroring what they're doing.
Right. And again, I think that there's people that might, not be able to do that for certain reasons. I think that there also is things with autism and issues that maybe that there isn't empathy or the ability to do that because of different, different like disorders and deficits and all these things that, that again, I know we're talking about it, but I think that there absolutely are people who don't have the ability to have, I don't know what else to say other than that, yes, there's a choice at times, but I think that there are also maybe some things that people just, our brains are crazy, and there's so much that we only use how much percentage of our brain, you would know that.
Yeah, it's got to be like, I think it was like 20% or something like that. It was a small percentage. Yeah, it's not very.
There's so many things too. There was a list that I found, obviously we talked about there's 3 different types of empathy, which you were talking about: cognitive, emotional, and then like empathetic and like action. So I think that there's different parts to empathy. Maybe some people have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and maybe not like all 3. And I think that there's different things about it. I think that different professions, different situations, different life events change that and or give us we have more or less. I think that there's people in leadership and in as teachers, as police, and different things that you have to have more of, but you also have to be able to know when to use it and when not to. I think that's what Sam was saying too, is like a good example. You can't show too much because you'll get taken advantage of in certain situations. And that's also where people, it's great to have empathy, but people that do sometimes get taken advantage of. I know I do. In places, and there's things that are signs, we could run through a list too, that are like, people that don't have empathy. And I think it's a great thing for relationships. I think that there's people that ignore signs. We talked about red flags and things with relationships last week. There's things that people do. I've always said that there's things in relationships that if people know what a non-apology, like, then there's the, at least, having a obviously non-apology is different. If I felt you feel that way, if I made you do this, or you know what I mean, there's non-apologies. There's also in empathy, there's the at least. Well, at least you don't have this. Well, at least you still have this. So there's things that people are doing to you that don't actually help. It actually can make things worse, right?
Yeah, when you try to say, well, at least at least you have I remember watching this. I think we watched the same video where it was like a bunch of like farm animals and they were all in the hole and stuff like that. And one of them she goes, well, my marriage is falling apart. And she goes, well, at least you have a husband.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Like, no, you're not listening. Like,
I had a miscarriage. Well, at least you can get pregnant. I mean, this happens today.
Yeah. No, it does.
Happens.
Totally does.
And it's, it is absolutely, there are so many examples that people who are watching have guaranteed, at least this, at least that. It is not an I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I'm here for you. There's so many things that you could do. Excuse me, is like, I'm sorry. You're suffering. I'm here for you. This happened to me, but I can't imagine what you're going through. I mean, there's definitely so many things that that you can say. And I think that, I think that unfortunately we have social situations, we have work client situations, and it ends relationships. It ends, like I told you, my own contract. Like, it had a lot to do with empathy as well. People not really caring about the other person's feelings. And in business, it's a slippery slope with emotion, but I think that there's definitely things that people, you could see off the bat, if people have empathy for you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think what it comes down to is that we just need to take more time. You might not be the most empathetic person right now. Somebody watching right now, like you said, or watching the replay, or listening to on one of the other channels that we're on. You can always go check those out too. We're on a lot of different stuff. So, but if you're saying to yourself, like, I don't think I'm very empathetic, like, it's a skill that you can learn. It's definitely something that you can learn to recognize. You can recognize human behavior. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not, especially if it's not something you're used to doing. That's just anything in life. To put it plainly. So, obviously, it's just a skill you need to learn. It really is. If you want to be successful.
Absolutely. I think that for deeper connections, for, if you're looking to become in like a leadership role, I think that it really is needed for, it drives connection. I think that with only having the sympathy, again, sympathy is still nice. It's good to have the understanding of, but it's not empathy, obviously. But I think that can be a disconnect. When somebody has only sympathy, it can drive disconnect a little bit than the connection that empathy could have. So absolutely. I think if you're in a relationship, if you have friendships, if you're struggling to keep friendships, to keep relationships, to have a deeper connection, maybe that has to do with something about empathy. And you're right. There are empathy trainings.
There's trainings on everything. You can, 20 years ago, it'd be a lot harder to learn these skills, right? But the internet has made everything accessible. So if you can't learn something, it's not because the information's not out there. It's just that you weren't willing to look for it. So, but anyways, I think it's that time of the show where we have a couple moments. So if this is the first time that you've watched us or listened to us, there's a couple moments that we like to have at the end of the show that are near and dear to our hearts in this show. It's really what some people actually come to watch us for, not the content, right? And so really the first one that we want to share with you guys today is the millennial meme of the week.
The millennial meme.
So it is Mel's turn for the millennial meme of the week, and I think it's fitting because you're going to be you talked a lot about empathy today. So let's see what you got.
I want to record that too, so I don't have to say it each week. We can just hit a buzzer, the millennial meme.
We can do it. We can do it.
Listen, I think this is great because I don't think I've dated a man who hasn't had this this joke. So my meme says, during labor, the pain is so great that a woman can almost imagine what a man feels like when he has a cold.
Oh, jeez.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. It is a good one.
We have empathy, for our pain, which I haven't gone into labor. So unfortunately, I'm empathizing with all the women.
I'm sure
a lot of pain.
It seems like a very painful event.
And this picture, I can, I'm envisioning it. But when you guys, get sick with your colds, man, it is like the end of the world. So maybe there's some empathy there.
Yeah, you're right. I'll give you that. We're pitiful when we're sick. So, but anyways, Mel gets two. Like on certain weeks, she gets back to back, guys. So there's another thing that we like to do at the end of the show, and it's the moment. And hold on, we have a comment, so I gotta pop it up. So Sam.
Listen, Sam. Listen, I know you're not a millennial, but he popped up the emoji with the big eyes, and I was just talking to somebody today about how the Gen Z, right? Our Gen Zers are making fun of us because of our emojis, and he just puts emojis.
So I have to do this real quick before we get off.
What?
I have to do this real quick before we get off, and so she's probably listening in the other room. I have my niece over here, and she is the reason why we do millennial meme of the week, because she said millennial memes were so millennial, and I hope she heard me say that. But she also told me she wanted to let me know because I brought that conversation up, and she goes, "Oh, that's so old news. We don't make fun of you guys anymore." And I don't want to talk about it anymore. And so she probably heard me, or she might be upstairs. But
we did it so last week because we did 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago because we did the.
That's how quick the world moves.
But Sam was like, "Oof, that was." I don't know his. Emojis these days can mean so many things. That eggplant we talked about. Oh, you never know.
Yeah. So. But it is that moment. It is that moment, and it is none other than Mel's moment, where Mel actually gets to share a little bit of wisdom, right? It is the first inaugural episode of After Dark, so we might get a little bit different version of Mel's moment today. I don't know. We don't know. It's a whole new world. We just don't know.
Most of the time, I make this shit up as Billy says it's my turn. But, I do get the millennial meme. Although that's a moment that we trade off on, so I'm willing to share. Yeah. This was fine because look, you do the buttons in the background, you do the intro. We all play our part. We're a team. We play our part.
We are. I get millennials are very collaborative, so that's why
you can compromise. We have empathy. I feel you. Listen, I am pumped about next week. We're going to figure out if we're going to do it right at 12 next Friday, depending on the schedule at the conference. I would definitely be hopping on while I'm down there, doing some live videos and, sharing. If you guys follow on Facebook and Instagram, I will absolutely be updating you what's going on in the 70, 80 degree weather down there. But, just as Billy talked about, last week about being an improvement junkie, I just thought a growth junkie, where I feel like I'm a growth, I like to grow and learn self-improvement. So yeah, I think absolutely. I think if if you're having some conflict in what we were talking about in maybe not having empathy or being with people in a relationship or family or friends that don't have empathy. I think it's a great, topic to explore, for self growth and improvement. Because I think that when it's not there and present, it's times where you have to leave, and it's a make it or break it sometimes with deep connections and or not. And I think that when we talked about the relationships, and like I said earlier, I had to cut ties with something, unfortunately, because there were things lacking there. But it's like when there's something there or not there, you gotta don't walk, run away. But I think that, hey, empathy is needed for most, if not all, aspects. So I had a great time yelling about it tonight with you.
Yeah, it was great for our first MillenniYell After Dark, and I'm going to issue a challenge to Mel right now on the air. She needs to do this. She needs to make this happen. Next week, you need to see if you're. I think it would be amazing if somehow you get Grant on the podcast. You should do it live, like in the convention hall. Get them on there, or grab some millennials when they're running down the stage and stuff like that, and just grab them on, put them on the show real quick. I think that would be kind of an interesting dynamic. So
that's a lot of pressure, but I'm going to absolutely challenge accepted, Billy. Thank you.
So anyways, guys, we really appreciate everybody that jumped on tonight. If you liked what you heard, if you got some value out of today, go over to our Facebook page at the MillenniYell. And go like that page. Go like our Instagram, right? So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on all the things. So go just check us out everywhere. Just like us everywhere. It'd be really greatly appreciated. And like I always say, make sure you take some time this weekend to make some good memories with your family. Take that moment, and we hope that you guys enjoy your weekend. And we will be talking to you soon. So have a good one.
Bye.